Good evening and welcome to round 6 of the Phoenix Sim Racing F4 World Championship. My name's Joel Lask and joining me today is Thomas Merritt, our real life Fiesta Cup racing driver. Thomas, how you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, thank you. And you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Looking forward to tonight's racing?
Yeah, it'll be good. Be interesting with, obviously, there's a few track limit issues here at this circuit on particular corners, so be interested to see how the drivers manage with that. And I think we're in for a good night's racing with the championship hotting up as well.
Yeah, there is indeed. And I think the drivers are well aware of the track limit issues potentially around this track and where not to cut and where to keep within boundaries. It almost sounds like we're in Formula 1, I suppose. But we're there and we're ready to go. And you know, it's crazy to think that we're already round 6 of this championship. It almost feels like yesterday that we kicked off this season and yeah, everyone was ready in their engines to go, and here we are now, 6 rounds in, and the Drivers' Championship is definitely hotting up, wouldn't you say?
Certainly, yeah, it's going to be super close between all the drivers coming into the penultimate few rounds. Obviously, we've got Nurburgring and then Qatar and then finally Brands Hatch. So the drivers are going to have to be on their A game, just banking those points and scoring good positions to be in it for the end.
I must admit, Brands Hatch is one of my favourites. It's just one of those tracks that just clicks and had some good successes around there, so I must admit. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that as one of the last rounds of the season. But hey, you never know what's going to happen. So in the meantime, let's have a look at last week's top 3 and just see where the drivers ended up. So Adam Lyle came out with the most points of anyone, which was a big result for him based off of his first couple of rounds and having some issues with keeping the car on track, would we say, more than anything, I suppose. But banking the most points and a dominant drive from him and just go to show the practice that he put in. Cristiano Bettini in P2 and then Alexander Link P3, so they are top scorers. But I tell you what is hot. Say it again. I tell you what is hot enough is the driver's standings. So here we are. Carl Felvis leading the way with 177 points. A tough couple of rounds for him, I suppose, without his teammates in Ethan Hill and also Nicky Taylor. I know Nicky Taylor's here this evening. But a tough couple of rounds for him, just not being able to get the car where he wants. Obviously, he is struggling with that ballast. We do feel for him on that one, but he's leading the way still with 177 points. I suppose the biggest change here is Mr. Thomas Potter is not in P2. That's actually been taken away by Alexander Link, who's now in P2 with 173 points. Cristiano Bettini in 3rd with 170. Jonathan Ogden P4, 168. Juliana Giarco follows him with 163. Thomas Potter down in P6. It's got to be one for Thomas Potter to look at after a couple of difficult rounds for him. Being P2 in the championship and dropping down to P6, I'm sure he's going to be looking to make his way back through the pack and really solidify that run that he had, I suppose, more than anything, because he had a good couple of rounds to begin with and just sort of dropped off, whether that's through issues that he had with, you know, getting the car in the right spot. And I know he had some issues last round with the driver's setup. Hopefully he's rectified that for this run. You know, and when we look at the free practice times as it currently stands, Thomas Potter only 10th quickest of anyone with a 1:59.0 compared to, you know, Juliana Giarco that's running 1:57.7. So there's quite a difference in terms of pace between a lot of the drivers here. Lorenzo Centro in P7 with 145 points. Alessandro Schiurti P8 with 133 and Adam Lyle P9. After a great run sort of out of the last round with 131. Josh Martin P10 with 127. I think it's almost safe to say that realistically with this driver championship it's sort of shaken up. There's no one that's really dominant per se out of any of these rounds. And you know, Carl Fells had a great start to begin with. Adam Lyle's come into the mix. Thomas Potter, you know, he managed to fall his way down. Jonathan Ogden's had a sort of a slow start but managed to pull his way through and has worked his way up from realistically P12, P13 in the championship, now up to P4. Anyone within the top 7, top 8, maybe top 9 could realistically take this championship, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, 100%. All the drivers are so closely matched and the pace is so close that, you know, all the little mistakes now are gonna count, and the drivers are gonna have to be on their A game to sort of solidify the championship points. It's not about taking those risky moves for the win anymore. It's just about securing those top 5s or top 3s consistently and being there at the end at Brands Hatch.
Is indeed. Is indeed. As free practice is just ticking over now, and as we say, Giuliano Giarco is quickest in free practice. The guys started at the guys and girls started at 6:30 this evening. Giuliano Giarco with a 1:57.753, followed by Nicky Taylor in P2 with a 57.844, and Lorenzo Centra rounding out the top three with a 58.160. But I think it's safe to say that realistically the top 9 in free practice are all within realistically a second of one another. So again, we keep saying this, but this championship sort of thrown on its head just a little bit, and a lot of these drivers, are now in a position where anyone can potentially win it. It's that close. We look at Carl Felber struggling with the ballast. Didn't have the greatest run to last race. Got wiped out. He's now got Nicky Taylor to back him. Potentially here we might see the return of Carl and his dominance, but then also we've got a number of drivers that have managed to figure out the setups and get themselves dialed in.
Yeah, I mean, the setups, especially like you mentioned with Carl Felber's not having any teammates for a couple of rounds, it's going to be important for him to sort of gain back those lost points that he lost at Spa and other rounds. So I think tonight's going to be a real important sort of pivotal moment in the championship for him. He was looking strong in free practice, but like I said, that 30 kilogram ballast is not going to be helpful, and he's certainly going to have to build his driving and his setup around that.
Yeah, exactly that. And the thing is, obviously, Carl's still leading the championship, which is the biggest thing. And he's still going to have that 30 kilos of ballast, which is going to hurt him. I think that's safe to say. But what can he do in that situation? Like, it's one of these ones where, do you stay P1 for the whole championship? Do you try and hold on to it throughout, or do you let yourself fall down a little bit, get rid of that ballast, or take some of that ballast away, and then sort of keep yourself sort of P4, P5, and then come right at it right at the end? It's a tough one. It's all about strategy, and I think a lot of these drivers are now trying to sort of figure out their setups, and they're starting to dial them in and understand which track setups work with one another, and they're now in the right position to get themselves into the optimum groove for not only qualifying but the races.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be important. Obviously, qualifying is important to get yourself up there, but the race pace is ultimately where you score the points. And for 20 minutes, trying to keep those tyres alive and make sure the car is nice and well behaved over that stint, I think is more important. So the drivers might have to suffer out the 10 minutes at the beginning, try and do the best that they can, and then be in there for the good points for the championship at the end.
Yeah, indeed. Let's look at the YouTube chat now. So Billy Wright, come on, Johnny lad, good luck, mate. It's good to see that he's got some supporters in the YouTube chat here. Adrian Felvis, evening all, race night. Yeah, we're just as excited as what you are, Adrian. Hopefully Carl makes his return and gets himself back where he needs to be in order to retain the championship title. Jordan Osborne, good luck everyone. It's nice to see. Obviously Jordan's racing this evening, so it's nice to see him in here as well. Thomas Bart racing, he still can't get the car right. Says he's struggling with all the settings, plus his brake isn't working very well. Not looking hopeful. Well, I mean, this is one of these things, isn't it? These drivers, they almost make it look easy when they're out there on the track, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes in terms of not only practice but making sure their setups bang on. And I think we saw that with Ethan Hill, that was struggling with his setup and not only his hardware himself, and get himself into the right groove. Captain Pot Racing, he's got this. Come on, Teapot. Hey, there's a lot of Teapot supporters in the crowd here, so it's good to welcome you all. I think it's about 18 people here at the moment, so welcome to all of you. It'll be great to see who you think might take the qualifying run and who might put themselves on pole position for qualifying. So please put your guesstimations in there, and look forward to seeing them. What else can we see here? If he can get the top 10, that'd be great. Had to fix his brake pedal with a go-kart rear bumper rubber. Now that is commitment, as we see here. Andrea Rugi put into the wall in qualifying, so that's not going to be what he wants to see. Obviously going to be some damage to that car there, so we have to wait for these cars to go past, get himself back into the pits with 6 minutes 14 left to go in qualifying. Now all these drivers now are going to dump one lap, so they're going to register times, but none of those are going to be realistic times that they're going to be doing for quali. These are going to be almost like out laps and bank laps, and then they're going to be going in for the full ones. So this grid's set to change quite dramatically over the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, and it's such a long lap as well. The drivers can't really afford to come in and change those tyres, so they're going to have to be nice and conservative at the beginning, and then build up to it and potentially go for one last push at the end. But Adam, as we were just mentioning before the stream, he was looking for some competitive times. He was looking quickest in all the practices, but just backing out of his laps not to give anything away to the other drivers. So that's quite smart, and it'll be interesting to see if he can replicate those sort of times and put it towards the front. As we see the first sort of times coming in now, Nicky Taylor at the top, followed by Giuliano Giacco, 0.3 of a second there. That's quite a big gap. Followed by Alexander Link, only 1,000ths off of Giuliano, so that's really close. And then we go down to Lorenzo Sentra, and then Kyle Felvis, the championship leader in P5, a second off so far. But like we're mentioning, they're still building up for these times. Thomas Potter in P6, replicating his championship standing. As now we see Adam Lyle, and who is that behind? So you see,
very quickly, Nicky Taylor's managed to get it sideways and put it into the wall. So that's ruined his qualifying lap now. He's going to have to get back to the pit screen. He have a bit of damage, but Adam Lyle now jumping in P1 with a 57.661. And sorry to sort of jump in on you, but I think this is something we were discussing. Adam Lyle has got quite a bit of pace in this car compared to the first couple of rounds that he was in. You know, and potentially a strategic move of shoving his true pace to the rest of the field, which is quite a smart one, you've got to admit, but it might be an opportunity for him to really lay down the gauntlet and assert his authority in his championship.
Yeah, indeed, as well as Jonathan Ogden as well, just behind him, sort of team strategies there. He's 1.5 seconds off at the moment, but Adam is driving off onto the grass and through the wall. He's glitched out, I think. That is super unfortunate. As we see Jonathan Ogden, like I was mentioning, in P10. Oh, he's come back onto the circuit and hit Jonathan Ogden, his teammate. I don't know what was going on there. I think there was a bit of lag or something, but that is really not going to help. So yeah, interesting spice up there.
I mean, it's not going to help, especially if he hits his teammates. We see Nicky Taylor now diving into the pits, potentially for a change of tyres and a little bit more fuel. It's a bit of a tough one, that, isn't it? I mean, realistically, last thing you want is potentially hardware issues or internet issues coming into this race. You know, for Adam right now, I think the biggest thing for him is that he needs to make sure that he's getting as many points as he can, he's qualifying as high up as he can. So he's got P1 at the moment, but that doesn't mean that someone might be driving, you know, the WRT drivers, you know, they've been consistently quick, and, you know, again, when we talk about the strategy side of things, you know, these WRT drivers aren't putting laps in the official practice server, and they're actually doing it in the right server that they've got, as to try and make sure that people don't see what their true pace is. And actually with that you can catch a couple of people off guard and lower people into a false sense of security, I suppose, more than anything. So it's all to play for. 2 minutes 40 left to go.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's really close up to the front. We see Nicky Taylor make a slight improvement on his first quick lap out of the pits, so he's gone only 2/10 off now, with Giuliano Giacco 3/10, but Adam Lyle has sort of half spun and gone deep into turn 1, so he's having a bit of a messy qualifying here. Even though he is P1, there was still more time in it for him, so you know they're going to have to be careful with these track limits, but they're going to have to push on, because you should be certain that there are going to be some improvements later on towards the session. And I think there are some drivers in here that aren't setting representative times at the moment, so I think in the final few laps the drivers are setting, you're going to see a real spice up in the field.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think it's one of these ones where, you know, you can set these times in official practice, you can do a number of laps throughout the week and get the car dialed in, but, you know, when it comes down to that 10 minutes in qualifying, and it's almost do or die more than anything, you know, the pressure's on. And if you mess up your first lap or your banker lap, as we say, you know, then it's all down to you to make it work for your second flying lap. And, you know, as we watch on board of Adam Lyle here, he's a little bit of traffic in front of him. That's not going to help him in terms of improving his time. Yes, he's got the banker lap in, and he's, you know, 3/10 clear of Nicky Taylor in P2. But at the same time, like, he's gonna, in his head, he's gonna want to be improving on that. He doesn't want to sit there with that 57.6, because he knows what times can be done in these cars. Realistically, he's been on for a 3 in practice, so it only takes one lap from another driver to be able to thwart his run there in P1 and potentially throw him off.
Indeed, and there's the gaps in this qualifying session are actually a little bit bigger than we've seen in previous tracks, and there's a second separating the top 10. I mean, that is a huge gap when you put it into perspective. And I think at other circuits, when we've seen 5 tenths across the top 15 or whatnot, that's not gonna. It's sort of going to be quite a spread out race, I think, and it's going to be the person that conserves their car the most and has a good start that I think is going to come out on top. As we see Jonathan Ogden go deep into turn 1, there's a few mistakes, and it's looking like it's quite a difficult circuit to stay consistent at. So I think there could be quite a few mistakes in the race and maybe a few mishaps. As we see Adam Lyle there, I think he's done a track limit, so that's also not going to help his qualifying either.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of drivers that have been really trying to perfect their setups per se, and really try and nail them down for not only this qualifying session but also for the race. But what we also find is that there's a lot of drivers that perfect that qualifying setup but don't necessarily perfect it for the race, and they can be the quickest out there on trackers. But what looks like now, Adam Lyle is going to take P1 with Nicky Taylor in P2, Giuliano Giarco in P3. Giuliano's now finished his run 57.986, so he's not far off. But it all comes down to race pace. It's one thing to put the laps down in qualifying, but it's another thing to put it down in terms of race pace.
Yeah, certainly, and like I mentioned before, qualifying is not where you score the points, or the big points, so the drivers are trying. This is almost a bit of a setup for race 1 and trying to put themselves in the best possible position. As we know, it's super competitive. It's super difficult to make the overtakes in the race, and the drivers are their racecraft is so ideal that it's hard to make a move with the defensive drive that people put up. As we see Adam Lyle come through the final corner now to finish off his final lap. And Nicky Taylor has improved, and he's only a tenth and a bit off. But Adam Lyle, it looks like he has done enough as he improves massively. He's now 5 tenths in the lead on a 57.2. That was... Where did that come from? But that is rapid. And yeah, he's very much secured pole.
I mean, he was taunting this, and this was the thing. And it all comes down to strategy and, almost playing that mental game with a lot of the drivers. He did say prior to this to the stream that he was able to put in laps like that, but actually bailed out of them just to not allow people to think that there is more time to be had. But he's gone and nailed that lap, and he's put in that 2.99 there. That's a solid lap, and actually it'd be a challenge for the rest of the drivers to be able to come after him and chase him down in terms of race. But again, like we say, it's down to race pace, it's down to that race setup. Some people will be changing that race setup now and making modifications to it. Has Adam Lyle got that race setup dialed in, or has he been more focused on the qualifying pace? We're about to find out, I suppose, as we allow the drivers now to go back to the pits, and they're going to come back in and get themselves ready, change tyres, add some fuel, and get themselves onto the grid ready to go. But in the meantime, we're going to go to an ad break, and we'll see you in just a moment.
Hello everyone and welcome back after a very entertaining qualifying session there, but certainly an interesting one. Obviously we saw quite a few mistakes and quite difficult to stay consistent around this circuit. I'm joined here by Adam Lyle, your pole sitter, by 0.5 of a second. Adam, how was that for you? It certainly looked good out from the outside.
Yeah, it felt good. I'm not 100% sure whether I was quite in or out on turn 4. Possibly have drafted out, but I think my P2, my second fastest lap, was just enough for pole anyway. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, brilliant. We were discussing this during your session. Obviously, the track limits is quite a major thing here. In multiple positions, you can pick it up very easily. And as a driver, that must be super hard to watch out for, especially in the race as well. What are your sort of thoughts going into a 20-minute race, trying to avoid those track limits as much as possible?
Absolutely dreading it, because if it's so hard to judge that one corner. If you catch the curb on the inside, you just unsettle the car. But obviously, if you miss the curb, you risk not making the corner on the exit anyway.
Yeah, it's such tight margins, and starting from pole again. You've done this already this season, and you've been on a bit of a streak. I don't want to jinx it, but have you found something in the car or your driving ability that's put you more towards the front now?
It's just more practice with the car. I finally seems to have clicked with it. I'm actually getting more chance for, like I say, practice. And I've kind of got myself a baseline set up now that just needs the tweaks. And yeah, it seems to work pretty well. It's not far off last week's setup. So
brilliant. And the final thing I wanted to ask, obviously coming off of quite a successful last round, what are your sort of thoughts going into this one about the championship? Obviously you are still quite a way off due to some difficult rounds at the beginning, but is it something that you're still looking at and still going for? Is it sort of helping out teammates now?
Championship, no, it's way too late for that now. But yeah, it'd be nice to maybe take some points off some of the top lads that are ahead of teammates and that, and hopefully help them out.
Brilliant. Well, good luck for race 1, and hopefully we'll be talking to you again afterwards. So yeah, have a good one.
Thanks, mate.
A big congratulations there to Adam Lyle, who takes P1 here for the first race here at Nurburgring, and a dominant showing from him, and an opportunity for him to be able to show what he can do and potentially turn this championship around. Like we say, the top 10 within this championship are all within a chance of winning potentially. So we can see what happens there as we move on now to our guest driver, Josh Martin. So Josh, we haven't spoken too much this championship, if at all. But what's happening with you?
This has been a while. I've not had a single interview all series. I've just not had the time to be completely honest. I think there are some very quick chaps in this series, and they know how to set up a car as well. So yeah, I've been slowly getting at it. I got a good setup with minimal rear wing downforce, but the tracks where I have to put a bit of rear wing on, like last week, I struggle with it. I just need to invest some time into dialing the setup in. I just haven't had that time, unfortunately. But still enjoying it, which is the main thing.
I was going to say, not many give away your preparation and your setup per se. But I'm sure there'll be people listening in going, actually, maybe I should take a little bit off that rear wing, or maybe I should add some front or something like that. But tell me now, are you missing Eric? Come on, I think this is the big question. You and Eric, you two are an absolute force to be reckoned with normally. With him not in this championship, are you missing him a little bit?
I don't think I need to worry about anyone copying my setup in this series. Yeah, I'm missing Eric because he obviously he's very fast, and he's good at setting up the car as well. So the weeks where I don't have the time to invest in getting my setup dialed, he's there to send me over one of his. So he often carries me a little bit in that sense in getting me I think that I can in tracks. I know I can generally pick up the pace quite well, but when you're, putting time into a setup, doing one change at a time, it just takes time, and really you can't really be doing that until you're up to speed with the track either. So yeah, Eric's a huge help when he's in the series. Just on the weeks where I haven't got the free time.
So tell me, obviously this track's quite a difficult one. It's very technical. There's a lot of drives that are incredibly quick. Like, what are you struggling with the most on this track? Is it just finding the pace, or is it more the car's not balanced, or what is it?
To be fair, I like this track, and I don't really feel I'm struggling anywhere in particular. It's just more of a when I'm up, like I was behind Kyle for a lap in practice, not Kyle, Nicky's, in a lap in practice, and it's just I just don't have their level of like front end grip. Even though my balance in my car feels great, it's just I just need to be that step up of turning, and obviously that just it's all in the setup. So no, I'm doing the best I can. And yeah, I enjoy this track. It's a fun one to drive, and it's good in these cars as well.
Okay, so what are your aspirations for this race? Where do you see yourself? Are you gaining positions? Are you going for the win? Or is it a case of banking some points and trying to move yourself up in the championship?
Well, going by what you said a minute ago, down to 10th can win the championship. So obviously I'm on for the championship win. It's just all in the master plan of keeping the ballast down. But no, I've always raced better than I qualify. Even ever since I've been doing qualifying in real world and the sim, it's always been my weakness, and I always race much better than I qualify. So yeah, so I should move forward, and we'll see where I end up. Having a win would be lovely, but I think I've got to get a podium this series. So that's my goal.
I'm going to say, like, last thing out of anything, where's Dave? He's normally shouting your name in this YouTube chat, and I can't see him thus far. Has he taken a day off? Have you paid him? Is he on holiday? What's the crap?
I better ring him. I've got to have the fans in the chat to at least make me look popular. So I'll have to get out. He might be hiding at his girlfriend's house. That's often when he doesn't appear in the stream is when he's there. So
I was going to say, normally he's cheering you on and rampant in the YouTube chat, giving you plenty of encouragement. But look, Josh, good luck for race one, and hopefully you'll make your mark and gain a couple of positions that you need, and hopefully bank some points that you need for the championship.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Dave, I do a bit of rallying at the minute, and Dave co-drives for me in that. So recently I've been having him sat right by me with his words of encouragement. So no, I need him maybe in real life to come and sit by me rather than the YouTube chat.
There's no wonder why you do so bad in real life. Now we know. See, this is.
Hey, we come second on the weekend.
Well, look, congratulations, and look, good luck for race one. And with a bit of luck, we might be speaking to you after the race concludes.
Yeah, hopefully.
Cheers, Josh.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, there we have it. Josh Martin as our guest driver that we bring on board, and we try and do this as much as possible and bring people on board that potentially haven't qualified in the top three, or qualifying pole more than anything, just so we can hear a little bit of what they think about the track and where they're at and their setup and things like that. But I tell you what, Thomas, it's over to you. We're ready to go, and I'll let you take the lights out.
Brilliant, thank you. Got the pressure now.
I'll stitch you up an absolute treat, but it's over to you.
Yeah, no, it'll be a good start. Obviously, Adam, it's not his first time starting from pole. He did it last week. Can he replicate what he did last week and get a race one win? We will see. Nicky Taylor with a really good qualifying. He's each being a little bit further down. As we see the lights now come on, so we have eventually we have 1 light, 2 light, 3 light, 4 light, 5 lights, and finally the 6th light will come on, and they will go out now. and we are racing. Adam Lyle with a really good start, Nicky Taylor with a little bit of wheel spin. Giuliano Giacco is going to almost pull up a bit alongside, but Adam's got that nice lead as they come down to turn 1 now. It's super close between the top 3. Nicky Taylor's going to launch one on Adam Lyle, is he? Thought about it, not quite. Thomas Potter with a big send down the inside. I'm not sure if that quite worked out, but I think they all got through unscathed. Yes, they did. Alexander Link in P4 trying to get his way past Carl Phelps if he potentially can. Kyle down in P6 with a little bit of a worse start, a little bit further down than we would usually see him. And then we've got Josh Martin, who we just spoke to, and then Jonathan Ogden, etc. down the field. But yeah, they've all slotted in nicely, and now we're racing for 19 minutes.
I tell you what, speaking he shall appear, Dave has appeared in the YouTube chat. Here he is. I have been summoned. Josh, please do a Kimi Raikkonen circa 2005. Well, I tell you what, we hope he does that. But as it currently stands, Adam Lyle was managed to maintain the lead and put out a small gap here to Nicky Taylor. But that's not without warning that Nicky's trying to make the move and sending a couple shoots up the inside as Nicky Taylor's actually now gone wide and put it on the grass, and he's now dropped down to P13, so whatever he did just there has not worked out well for him. But I'll tell you who it has worked out for is Carl Phelps. I say that, but he's going across the grass down to P7, so something's happened there between the lot of them. But hit Adam Lyle 2 seconds out in front. He must think this is a perfect start for him.
Yeah, I was just looking there. Interestingly, Giuliano Giacco basically forced Nicky Taylor round and spun him round, so that's potentially a penalty coming his way. And then there was contact in the S's with Carl Phelps, and I think it was Alexander Link and Lorenzo Sentra. Sort of a 3-wide moment, does not work through that chicane. They all came together, so I'm not sure. I think it was a bit more of a racing incident rather than anyone's fault. But yeah, that's really not going to help us. There's more carnage at the final chicane. Alexander Link is forced straight on, and Thomas Potter is forced to lock up and potentially go a little wide across the grass. So I was saying it was a nice clean start, but it's all kicked off around the first lap. But like you say, Adam Lyle with 1.8 seconds out in front at the moment, who all he needs to do is rein it in for 17.5 minutes and see where he ends up.
I mean, that was a perfect start for him, and smart for Carl Phelps, Thomas Potter, Nicky Taylor. But I think what Carl's got in his arsenal here is as he dives up the inside of Thomas Potter to T1 and gets the move done nice and easily, is that he's got Nicky Taylor to help support him, and he didn't have that over the past after the last race. And I think that's what happened him the most. But that Carl's got the pace. It's his opportunity now to push his way through, and potentially Nicky might move over because he's not got that same position within the championship standards. He might just move out of the way and allow Carl to go through and take those points that he needs to solidify his standing in the championship.
Yeah, potentially. Like we mentioned at the beginning of the stream, every point counts. And Kyle Phelps on a bit of a bad run at the moment over the past few rounds. He's obviously got to be quite disappointed with that. As we see the two teammates, Tabaroni and Bertini up into 3rd and 4th. They've had a really good start, and they're almost working together with the slipstream, trying to get themselves towards Giuliano Giacco and Adam Lyle. And then Ricardo Lina in P5. And like you mentioned, Nicky Taylor potentially going to get out of the way of Carl Phelps. And then Thomas Potter following in close pursuit. But I say that, but is that Ricardo Lina? It is. So Nicky Taylor has found his way past Ricardo Lina, so now it's Carl's turn to try and fight his way past and potentially get up with his teammate. But yeah, obviously potentially a little mistake from Ricardo there, or just a bit of lack of pace. But yeah, even so, it's there's fighting going up all the way down the field.
Yeah, 100%. And Carl Phelps was much later in the race than Ricardo Lina, so clearly disparity here in terms of race pace. We spoke about this. Get the qualifying set up back, but the race setup is completely different. I mean, one thing to pay attention to now is Giuliano Giacco is only 1.8 seconds behind. That's a nice healthy gap for him, but Tabaroni 6.5 seconds off of Adam Lyle already, which is going to be that's a lot of time to be behind, and that's a lot of time to make up as well, especially if you haven't got the pace of him. As we see Carl Phelps go around the outside of Ricardo Lina here now. So he's managed to make that position. He's now going to chase after Nicky Taylor. Again, we have to remember he's on that 30 kilograms of ballast, so that's going to hurt him as he runs a little bit wide on turn 4. And we spoke about this before. That's track limit right there. So he needs to be careful of that one. Obviously, the drivers get 3 strikes and you're out, as we would in other formulas like Formula 1 and things things like that. So Stewart's going to be looking at that one. But, you know, it's now eyes on Carl Felvis. He's the championship leader. He needs to be able to make these positions up. You know, is Nicky going to concede the way, seeing as he wasn't here last round? You know, he's down in the championship positions. Is he going to let Carl through potentially towards the back end of the race if they can work together and make their way through the pack? This might work in their favour, but you've got to say for Adam Lyle right now, 1.4 seconds ahead of Giuliano Giarco. He's potentially got this one ready, sewn up and in the bag.
Yeah, potentially, but it was interesting watching that gap. It was 1.8 at the beginning of the lap, so it's come down by 0.4, interestingly. So Adam, I don't think he's going to have it as easy as we think. Is that...
Ronnie's down to P10, so he's made a mistake here, and that's allowed Carl and Nicky up a position here, which they're going to say thank you very much to. That's exactly what they need. These mistakes are going to happen throughout this race, but I think one of the other key battles that we need to look at here is Thomas Potter and Josh Martin now, as they go toe-to-toe. And we'll go on board with Thomas Potter here as he chases down Josh Martin, but you know, there's a nice little battle forming up in the mid-pack here.
Yeah, there certainly is. They are all in really hot pursuit. Josh Martin in close pursuit of Ricardo Lina. He's had a good start to the race. As we see Thomas Potter and Jonathan Ogden going side by side. Jonathan looking for the cutback here. It hasn't quite worked out. Thomas Potter deep onto the brakes there and has covered off the move, which is what he needs for his championship to stay alive. The problem is that Nicky Taylor's got here is the gap to Kyle behind it is quite big, and he can't just let off and let that gap go, because that's going to really hurt his race. He needs Kyle to be a little bit closer in order for them to do that swap round, if they are going to do that swap round, because Nicky Taylor right now is currently putting a lot of pressure on Cristiano Bettini, and I think there potentially is a move coming quite soon. Cristiano must be feeling the pressure here, having the purple car sat right in his mirrors. And yeah, I mean, that gap between Giuliano and Adam is coming down, so I wouldn't rule it out just yet. So yeah, I think it'd be interesting for a final 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. Giarco now only 8 tenths behind Adam Lyle. You know, Nicky Taylor now right on the bumper of Cristiano Bettini, and he's going to go for the move. But like you said, your car's too far behind. Is Nicky going to make the move around the outside? He's definitely going to look for it. He goes a little bit wide, but he's looking to make it stick, and he doesn't. Cristiano still managed to retain that position. This is going to hold these two up, and actually this is perfect for Kyle, because Kyle's going to jump right onto the back of it as Nicky gets the run down into the second to last corner here, and he's going to go into the game potentially ahead, which he does do, and he's made the move stick. It's not great for Kyle, because Kyle's going to be hoping that those two are going to, you know, bunch up together and really drag themselves back. But Nicky Taylor up to P3 now, and now we need to chase after Giuliano Giarco. But just look at the gap between Giuliano and Adam. Giuliano with a 1:58.4 and Adam into the 1:59. So you've got to say, with 5 tenths between them, Giuliano Giarco's clearly got more pace than what Adam Lyle's got, and could we potentially in this next lap see a move for P1?
Yeah, certainly. Adam is not going to have it as easy as he would have wanted, and it's interesting seeing that pace drop between qualifying and the race. This is what we're mentioning with the setups. It's so crucial in these cars. I think potentially Adam hasn't quite got it in for the race, or he's just, you know, a few mistakes in the consistency here and there over a 20-minute course. It's super hard. So, you know, he's going to be feeling the pressure with Giuliano in the mirrors, but he's just going to keep it nice and relaxed, keep it nice and calm, and see where he can end up, really. As we see Nicky Taylor now really building that gap to Cristiano Bettini behind, and Kyle sort of staying neutral. The gap's not really coming down, but the mid-pack is sort of spread out, really, except Jonathan Ogden and Thomas Potter, who I think they're going to go side by side. They certainly are into the downhill hairpin. Jonathan looking on the outside, he's ran a little bit deep, but he's managed to get the car stopped, and he'll be looking for the cutback now. So we've got some really good racing going on, some really solid racing. Giuliano's potentially dropped off a little bit for the lead, so I think it's going to be the mid-pack we're going to want to watch. But yeah, it's all kicking off.
This lead is obviously, you don't know where to look, because you've got Giuliano Giarco. It's 7 tenths off of Adam Lyle now for P1. The original Johnny Ogden, Thomas Potter battling it out. Remember, Thomas Potter once upon a time was P2 in the championship, and that's the one that he really needs to focus on more than anything. You know, he's dropped down the championship standards, but he needs a good result to push him back up through there, and he's just not making the waves that he was expecting. As you know, Johnny Ogden goes round the outside, and Thomas Potter's not going to make this easy for him. And Johnny Ogden look to make the switch back, but Thomas Potter thinks better of it and holds him up on that chicane. You know, Thomas Potter's not going to be one that's going to let it lie easy, but you know, I say that, and Johnny Ogden dives up the inside and makes the move stick. But you know, is Thomas Potter going to get the toe down the straight? He's not sitting in the toe, which is interesting. You know, Johnny Ogden going to the inside to defend. I say that Johnny Ogden's got this position, you know, in the bag.
It's super close. Thomas Potter looking on the outside, looking for the cutback. But I don't think it quite works through that first corner. We've seen a few attempts at that, and it's never really worked through the time. However, this corner does. Thomas Potter back up the inside of Johnny Ogden, and he's made the move stick. Has he gone in deep, though? We're going to see another cutback. No, we're going to see Jonathan Ogden try and hang it around the outside to have the inside, which he does absolutely beautifully. But has he got the run out? Because now they're allowing people like Alexander Link into the fray, and now we've got a three-wide moment as they come into the downhill section, as we've got, who is that on the inside? That's Alexander Link on the inside of Johnny Ogden, pushes him out onto the grass, gets the move, then goes in deep, and we're back side by side. So this is absolutely incredible scenes here. As I think, is that Tabaroni on his comeback? I think it is. Yeah, it's just, you don't really know where to look, do you? And then Lorenzo Centra behind, looking for that position. So Johnny Ogden found himself in P8, and now he's fighting for, I think that's P10 or P11. So, incredible.
I mean, it goes to show how, you know, level this playing field is, and you know, you make one mistake, you go for that dive and move, and actually you can lose out a lot of positions. And Johnny Ogden now P11. Thomas Potter holding on to that P8 and did a fantastic job of doing so. But you know, points mean prizes, and this is the biggest thing. You know, when you're battling these F4 cars, this is the biggest problem that people are going to find, is that, you know, you lose so much time to the rest of the pack, and it allows people to bunch up and get involved, and that's exactly what's happened as Johnny Ogden now makes his way up into P10 through the chicane. You know, he's got a little work to do here, and you know, if Thomas Potter and Alexander Link, you know, carry on battling the way that they are, there's an opportunity here for him to get back past, but this is almost a five-way battle for P7.
Yes, it certainly is. And another thing I've just seen as well is Kyle Felvis has made the move on Cristiano Bettini. He's going to think about going to the outside, but Kyle has got that move secured, and he's up into P4. So this is the time, if he can get that gap to Ricardo, that the team might think about doing the switch around between him and Nicky. But like I mentioned before, the gap is 4 seconds. So unless Kyle can start to make some inroads on that, or Nicky can slightly back off a little bit, I don't think that swap around is going to come, and that could be crucial in the championship.
It's almost like, you know, the conversation between Nicky and Kyle hasn't come through realistically. Nicky needs to let him through, but you know, like you say, Kyle is too far off of it to, you know, make that work, and actually that can hamper Nicky's race more than anything. But you know, Kyle's a championship leader. Do you do whatever means possible to allow him through? You know, he's 4 seconds off of Nicky Taylor. Nicky's not going to give up 4 seconds. It's just not going to happen realistically. But then again, Nicky's 8 seconds off of the lead. So, you know, Nicky's in no man's land right now. Is it a situation that you might see towards the end of the race? I mean, we've got 6 minutes 30 left to go. Does Nicky say, you know what, I'm going to give Kyle that P3, allow him to gain the points that he needs?
Potentially, but the problem is that Nicky's going to face here, and Kyle as well, is Cristiano Bettini, is all over the back of Kyle. So if Nicky Taylor lets him through, he's then going to have a monstrous battle with Bettini, which is not what they need, especially if they come to blows. That's, you know, that's going to really not be ideal for Nicky. As we see a few mistakes from Kyle, he's having to go on the defensive. Bettini's up the inside, he's across the pit lane. He backs out of it because they were so close to contact there, and Kyle is now on the outside. So I think at this rate the switch around is not coming, because they are almost banging wheels down the main straight, and you know, if one person is on the podium, you don't want to hamper both of their races when you could just have a nice solid race for Nicky. As we see him go side by side into here, Kyle is going to try and hang around the outside. Bettini's got the drive off the corner. Kyle has still got his nose into the left-hander, and he's up the inside. So this is anybody's race so far.
It is indeed, and you know, this isn't going to be what Kyle wants. I mean, the main thing for him is that he's, you know, making those points up in terms of the championship. Him fighting Cristiano Bettini right now is not what he wants whatsoever. I mean, they're losing time to Nicky Taylor in P3. Realistically, Nicky's not going to give up that time now. I mean, unless he decides to realistically back off right on the last lap, but you know, being 6 seconds down. You know, that's not what he's going to be after. And you know, realistically, is Nicky going to be able to make it up to Julian and Jarko? No, but at the same time, you know, is he going to want to give that place up to Kyle? That's down to team orders. That's going to be the main thing. So we'll look to see that possibly towards the end of the race. But you know, Kyle just needs to put in those fastest laps. And right now, you know, he's doing 2 minute, you know, threes. Sorry, 2 minute dead point threes. But you know, that's not the times that he really needs to be making when his best laps are 1:58, 8:42. So you know, Carl's sort of in no man's land right now, and he really needs to start pushing on and get out of the way of Cristiano Bettini.
And I've just seen something really interesting, just jumping off your point ever so slightly. Jonathan Ogden, who's P4 in the championship, and is only, I think, 9 points off of the lead, has spun of his own accord at the downhill hairpin, and I think he's down to about 14th or 15th, which is going to really hurt his championship, especially when his rivals, even like Thomas Potter, are much higher up than him. So yeah, he's got to be quite disappointed with that. However, the reverse grid could bring him back into play, so you know, it's all to play for. As Kyle is still not getting away from Bettini, so and the gap's increased now to 6 seconds. So I think the swap around is over with only 3.5 minutes to go. As well, the gap between Adam and Giuliano has increased to 1.6. So I think Adam potentially saving some tyres at the beginning of the race, or just, you know, keeping it nice and consistent is starting to you know, wring the neck out of the car.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right there. I think Adam's potentially just, you know, saving his tyres and taking it easy. You know, he's had situations before where, you know, he's potentially put it into a wall, or, you know, he's had the off, and he doesn't need that right now. What he needs right now is the points. And you know, Jarko's only, you know, 1.2 seconds off him, and he's sort of chasing him down. There's a big gap behind, you know, nearly 9 seconds worth of gap behind him. You know, if Adam makes one wrong move, Jarko is going to be right on his tail. We know he's a quick driver, so he just needs to, you know, hang in there and not make any mistakes, because if he does, it's game over for him. And you know, for Adam Lyle more than anything, it's an opportunity for him to, you know, make a stand and really go for the championship.
Yeah, exactly that. He said he was too far out for the championship, but there is still this round and 2 others to go. And, you know, some incidents that have involved other championship contenders. Don't rule out Adam. He's only, I think, 40 points off. And when you put it in the grand scheme of things, it's quite a big gap. If he keeps scoring these big points, then it's anybody's game, really. As we see, you know, certain drivers like Thomas Potter and Johnny Ogden and Kyle Felvis even. I know he's P4, but with such small margins that it is in this championship, you really can't rule out anyone. Like you said, in even that top 10.
Yeah, I think even going on board now with Cristiano Bettini, you're seeing these drivers going over these curves. I think this pays testament to their setups more than anything. They're really having to hang on to these cars more than anything. You know, he's chasing after Kyle Felvis, but he's 3/10 off of him more than anything. And then you look at, you know, Josh Martin that's making inroads on him. You know, too little, too late potentially with 1 minute 39 left to go. Like, these cars are a handful. They're not easy to drive. And you know, towards the back end of a race, these soft tyres are dropping off. They're all on the same compound. You know, it's all about who can manage them the most. And you've got to say, you know, Kyle Felvis, even with the 30 kilos of ballast, like, he knows how to drive these cars and how to manage these tyres. And realistically for him, it's more of a case of, look, I've not got the pace to win this race, but the guys in front of me, you know, aren't potentially going to be able to overlap me in terms of race, you know, championship positions. So, you know, points mean prizes, and if you're consistent more than anything, that's what's going to be the deciding difference between, you know, finishing P1 and not.
Yeah, certainly. And like you say, points mean prizes. The top 3 get prizes. So for drivers like Adam Lyle, he's going to be aiming for potentially that 3rd place if P1 is too much of a stretch. And there are still some big prizes in this championship. And we've got that upcoming GT3 season as well. And there are some monstrous, you know, prizes in that as well. So please do get yourself involved if you've got a rig at home. But, you know, you're looking at the level of competition in here. It's a great place to sort of get your name on the board and get seen by some big teams and names.
Yes, indeed. It's, you know, 21 seconds left of this race, plus 1 lap. Adam Lyle's now out in front. You know, he's 1.4 seconds off of Giuliano and Giarco. You know, you would say that he's got this wrapped up in the bag. Commentator's curse says potentially he's going to put it in the wall on the next lap. I don't want to say that, but You know, when you look at the timings, 1:58.976 for Adam Lyle and a 1:59.2 for Giuliano Giacco. Adam Lyle was taking this in his stride, and you've got to say, is cruising more than anything. I would say that Adam's got more in the bank than what he's letting out, and you know, it's a dominant show from him over the past couple of rounds. You know, maybe the fact that he's nailed this setup and he's got the car where it needs to be. You know, he's literally corner perfect every single lap, and you've got to give it to him. This is what we want to see. You know, these drivers, you know, going at it, and you see the top 10 so close. But Adam Lyle now doing exactly what he needs to do to assert his dominance and realistically put himself in championship contention.
Yeah, certainly. That gap between Nicky Taylor and Carl Felps has only increased. So that's certainly out of the question. Bettini starting to get dropped a little bit by Kyle. But Josh Martin as well in a great P6. That's one of his best showings yet in this championship. And then, you know, championship contenders like Thomas Potter and Jonathan Ogden are struggling. Like I mentioned, Jonathan Ogden with that spin, he's P14. Which that's going to be detrimental to his championship and really not ideal, and not where he wants to be at all. So yeah, it's interesting how this is going to shape up, and I think at Brands Hatch and Qatar the points are going to be absolutely minimal, like the gap wise, and I think we're in for a real treat for the drivers battling it out. But like it must be said, Adam Lyle going on to the final lap now, as it's +1 lap. It has been a dominant performance. All he needs to do now is just hit his marks, not overdrive. He's got that 2-second gap almost now, so he just needs to just bring it home really, and then get his eyes set on the reverse grid, as we know there's always carnage that kicks off in that.
It is indeed, as Adam Lyle crosses the line for seconds last time now, so he's now on to the final lap. This is an opportunity now with a 2.2 second gap to Giuliano Giacco. You've got to say he's got this wrapped up, and you know, a dominant performance from him. He's made it almost look easy, and across the past 2 rounds, you've got to say that, you know, Adam's untouchable. No one's been able to match his pace. You know, we said in qualifying, you know, it's one thing to put in the qualifying time, but as we watch him go round and we go on board with him now, it's so smooth, so consistent. You've got to give him credit. You know, whether that's down to the practice time that he's put in. You know, he's managed to find that edge over the other drivers that he potentially didn't have over the previous rounds, and it's such a stark contrast, you know, between him, you know, really struggling the first couple of rounds and, you know, getting the offs and putting into a wall, to all of a sudden leading the pack. And you know, this goes down to absolutely anyone. Like, this championship is for anyone to win. You know, Adam Lyle might win this first race, but you know, the reverse grid could be completely different. Adam's going to be starting from the back. Same with Giuliano Giacco and Nicky Taylor, and you know, Carl's up in that P4. That's going to be good points for him, and I'm sure he's going to be happy with that based upon, you know, the 30 kilos of ballast that he has. You know, Adam hasn't got the same ballast as what Carl's got, so it's just one of those situations that you find yourself in, and it's all down to strategy at the end of the day. But like you say, you know, the likes of Thomas Potter down in P11, that's not going to be where he wants to finish, knowing his pace throughout this championship. You know, Thomas has been incredibly quick throughout the first couple of rounds, and you know, potentially just not found the pace from his setup, not managed to dial it in through, you know, the past 2 rounds per se. But you know, it makes such a big difference, and all these drivers are within, you know, only a handful of points between them, as Adam Lyle now comes through the last corner. Giuliano Giacco and he's 6 tenths behind, so really putting the push behind him. But as we see it now, Adam Lyle now takes the win for, you know, race 1 here at the Nurburgring, and Giuliano Giacco comes in P2. Nicky Taylor a long way behind in, you know, P3, and 7 seconds behind. But you know, that's what it's about. You know, some of these drivers have got it hooked up, and some of these drivers haven't. Carl Felps will be, I'm sure, happy with that P4, you know, with that championship standing that he's in. But you know, he's going to be looking for more for race 2.
Yeah, he certainly is, and that was a great race 1 here at the Nurburgring. And you know, people like Carl Felps are going to be starting ahead of the likes of Adam Lyle and Giuliano Giacco. So it will just be interesting to see how quickly these drivers can make their way through the pack, and if there's going to be any incidents that they can either avoid or get caught up in. It will be interesting to see.
Indeed. As we allow these drivers now to come back to the pits, change tyres, you know, get some fuel into the cars and get themselves prepped, ready for race 2. As we go now to our break, and we'll see you in just a moment.
going on, guys, and welcome back to Nerd PC Turbo Tech Reviews. Now today is something a little bit different. Normally we do just reviews on a single item, but today we're going to be showing you guys what you can expect from Nerd PC. Nerd PC is a bespoke building company where you can get absolutely any sort of style of gaming PC, office work PC, retail, or even for school work. This PC here demonstrates how small they can be, but yet still pack an absolute powerful punch. So from such a small computer like this, you may be worrying about heat, but these fans inside of here keep it absolutely ice cold as well as quiet. Now listen to this. Nice and quiet. Beautiful. Now we build completely different style of computers. Like I said, from this little one up here, it's all down to you. You get to decide on which case you want to use. You get to decide if you want it all flashy and RGB. You get to decide whether you want it completely plain and black. Remember, we did the hard part of figuring out which components work best for you for your value for money, but you get to decide on how it looks. If you're after something that's in your face, some bright and powerful as this. So this build here is in a Gigabyte C102 glass Arctic ice case with 320mm cooler master fans at the front, 360mm all-in-one cooler at the top. This full white ice build does look insane, and I can assure you, you will not be disappointed. So if you're on the market for a brand new shining gaming computer, or if you want a computer for home use, retail, or office work, it's completely down to you. We just make it happen. So if you haven't done already, go and head over to the website at www.nerdpc.co.uk, have a browse through, see what's on there, or drop us a message directly on Facebook, and we'll do our absolute best to make it happen for you. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it. And if you are new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you did enjoy this video, hit the like for me, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!
And welcome
Hello,
back.
everyone.
What an impressive first race that it was, and we nearly tripped over each other there, Thomas. Did you see that? We've changed roles for once. As I'll be interviewing Nikki for P3. So Nikki, talk me through that race. How was it for you? And how did it go?
Yeah, I mean, third's an interesting way of saying P2, to be fair, but yeah, that's,
apologies.
yeah, I was gonna say if that, well, P3 on road, but if that's not P2 in stewards, then I'm blind. But yeah, it was alright. Kind of had the pace to be with Adam and with Giuliano, but yeah, the contact essentially ruined anything I could do because I had damage from early on, and then my tyres were basically cooked from half spinning.
So talk to me about that, because obviously tyres have been a big factor within some of these races here, and some tracks are more abrasive than others. How were the tyres in that race, and regardless of the potential contacts that we had, like what was the pace like?
I mean, to be fair, during like the start and the early sections of the race, like comparing my pace to Giuliano and Adam, we all seemed kind of level on pace, and then about the last 5 minutes when the tyres started going off, I seemed to be gaining an absolute buttload on both of them. So I think when the tyres are cooked, yeah, I would like to say I'm the quicker one, but yeah, the tyres, for some bizarre reason, whenever I drive a car with used tyres, I'm normally quite quick in it. So yeah, the tyres were a bit sketchy, but they were manageable, and I was still doing within 1 or 2 tenths of my fastest lap. So yeah, bring on race 2.
So look, just in terms of that, obviously, Mr. Lyle there was potentially hiding some pace that he had throughout the practice session and qualifying. Do you think you've got the pace to chase after Adam and hunt him down and sort of match him pace for pace?
Yeah, well, after what he said in the server after qualifying, where he said that 2 might not have been legal, with it, his time seemed to be around the same sort of times as me, like 57.6s. So I think we're pretty even on pace, and in all honesty, I think me being just behind in certain scenarios is better because the slipstream is worth an absolute shed load here. So yeah, I think we'll be fully up for it and hopefully win the second race.
Good to see. And just quickly before you go, I know we push for time, but you're in a team with Carl here. Carl's obviously leading the championship. Is there team orders here? Is it a case of I don't know, maybe in that race Carl was a little bit far off of you? Is it a case of you potentially let him through to gain them valuable points that he needs, or is it a case of it's every driver for themselves?
I mean, Kyle's been pretty vocal over the last week and a bit on Instagram and on his socials that he needs his own performances to improve from himself. I personally don't think he needs to improve any much more, because then he'll be fully down the road and be quicker than everyone. So if he could rein it in a bit, that'd be great. But yeah, honestly, team orders, me and Kyle have known each other for like the past 4 years, and we know how each other work. So
Yep.
the likelihood of him getting through and getting into P1 initially is going to be very high with reverse grid. But at the end of the day, if he doesn't get through and he can see I'm quicker than him, then he'll let me through. We know how it works by now, and it might come into account, but I don't think team orders are going to prove too much in this race, to be fair.
Yeah, for sure. Well, look, congratulations on your race position, and we potentially might be speaking to you in race 2.
Hopefully so. Cheers.
Cheers, Nicky. As we now move on to Thomas Merritt and our P2 interview.
Brilliant. Well, hi everyone. Sorry for jumping on your toaster, but you know, we're going to move to Giuliano Giacco, who drove an absolutely mega race for P2. It was interesting to see the strategy. Obviously, you were quicker at the start, and then Adam eked it out a little bit. But the tyres a major factor around here, and how was the race for yourself?
Hai fatto una gara ottima per conquistare la seconda posizione. Cosa ne pensi della gara? Com'è andata?
La gara è andata abbastanza bene, anche se secondo me c'è stato un contatto con Nicky e sicuramente perderò la seconda posizione, ma andrò in terza, ma va bene lo stesso perché sono davanti ai concorrenti diretti avversari, diciamo.
Okay. The race was nice, but Giuliano make a contact with Nicky, so he think we split in third position, and but it's okay because this is the penalty if the steward will see these things, and the most important is he is in front of the direct pilot with for the championship. So this is the most important thing, and he will see about the second race. I think it's so hard, but he tried to be the most he can to be in the podium again.
Brilliant. And obviously it's reverse grid now. What are your sort of feelings going into this, and is it for a win or is it just banking the championship points?
Pensi di poter vincere oppure pensi di far più punti
No,
possibili?
faccio punti possibili.
He think to make more points he can, because to win it's harder with Liam today.
And finally, is there anyone you'd like to thank on the stream?
We will say thanks to everyone, to the organization, to the team, to the other
Nicky.
driver, and dimmi giù.
Volevo fare i complimenti a Adam e a Nicky.
And he say compliments to Adam and to Nicky for the race, for the first race.
Brilliant. Well, hopefully we'll be speaking to you again after race 2, and yeah, good luck. Have a good one.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there we go then, Giuliano Giacco with a dominant P2. But we move on now to Adam Lyle, who took P1 in that race, and quite dominantly, more than anything. Adam, we've got a couple of minutes, so we'll keep this short and sweet, but how was that race for you?
Yeah, obviously win's a win, so it was good. Yeah, really enjoyed that one.
It's great to see you're a man of words more than anything, but more than anything, what are your aspirations for race 2?
Race 2.
Are you going to
don't
keep
know.
out of the wall? That's going to be the biggest thing.
I'm going to try. That's the main aim. That's what's been getting me when I'm stuck in a bit of traffic. So fingers crossed I can repeat last week, but avoid any incidents on lap 1 this time.
Okay, well, look, good luck, Adam, for race 2, and hopefully you don't find a wall in race 2 and you manage to secure those valuable points that you need for the championship. So yeah, good luck for race 2, and hopefully we speak to you then.
Thanks, Joel.
There we go then, Adam Lyle, P1 in race 1. Let's see if he can replicate that for race 2. But yeah, this championship's really hotting up, and there's a lot of strategy that's getting involved between these drivers. And you know, there's penalties that are potentially to come, and it's interesting to see that some of these drivers are talking about penalties that, you know, that might be upcoming for other drivers and things like that. So, you know, as we near towards the end of this championship. It's quite fun to see, you know, some of the games that some of these drivers are playing, and you know where all of these drivers are going to end up towards the back end. When you say, Thomas?
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, it's a really nice feel between all the drivers. Very apologetic if they have made a mistake, and you know mistakes do happen in these high stake pressure areas. So you know the mistakes are going to happen, but it's nice to see that they're very apologetic and appreciative of each other of how difficult this series is as we get ready for race 2 here.
We do indeed, and Vince Chan on pole here, alongside Catherine Potter in P2 and Alex Forrester in P3. Johnny Ogden, this is going to be the one. You know, Johnny Ogden in P5, Thomas Potter in P8. He's going to be looking for points here to push himself up the standings. But you've got to say for Kyle, Nicky, etc., that's going to be the one they need to go for. Is the gantry illuminates. We've got 4 lights illuminated, 5, 6, and we are go here. Slight delay, and Vince Chan does not get away as he likes to think, and that's really bogged him down into T1, and that's dropped him right down. But Catherine Potter now taking full effect of that one and diving into the first corner, and it's a mosh pit for T1 more than anything. Alex Forrester now in P1, followed by Alexander Rugi and Jonathan Ogden in P3. Obviously Jonathan's now up to nearly taking P2, should I say, more than anything. And he's going to be looking to take the lead and extend his run out and gain some valuable points.
He certainly will be. As I saw in the background, there was a huge accident. Someone went airborne for a second. So that's really not ideal. I think it caught about 8 drivers up. The one person that did get through really ideally was Kyle Felvis, Alexander Link, and Adam Lyle. Adam Lyle got that through that absolutely beautifully. Split the gap between all the drivers, and now he is pushing on, trying to gain back as many points as possible. He's looking feisty, and it'll be interesting to see where he can get up towards the end. Jonathan Ogden, though, is the one that you're going to have to watch out for. He is in P3, and he's shown better pace than the top 2, and he really needs to gain back some points. So I think he'll be on it in his reverse grid, trying to gain back as many positions as we see not Kyle Felvis. I think that was Olivia and Thomas Potter going side by side with fast S's. So yeah, it's interesting. Everyone just sorting themselves out. It's always the way the reverse grid rolls, but you know, really ideal starts for all the championship contenders.
It is indeed. It's Jonathan Ogden, 6/10 off of the leader here, Alex Forrester, and I'm sure he's just going to be biding his time as he sees Rugi and Forrester going side by side into the last corner here, or second to last corner into the chicane, and he's going to go round the outside and makes it stick and almost makes it look easy, does Johnny Ogden, and here he is now. He's going to be chasing after Forrester, and this is going to be the perfect start that he needs to, you know, extend that championship point position that he's after, as Thomas Potter now goes down to P4, and he's going to be battling his way as he tucks in behind Rugi. But again, you know, this is the one, you know, the likes of Carl Felvis up in P7 already, and Adam Lyle in P8. I think it's only a matter of time before these drivers suddenly make their way up to the front of the grid and, you know, start chasing after the leaders.
Yeah, certainly, as we see a really good battle between Adam Lyle, who has been involved in an incident. He had nowhere to go there, and he has spun round. That's not ideal. A bit of head-on contact. I think it was Carl Felvis that potentially tagged the rear end or just lost it on his own. But, you know, Kyle had a bit of oversteer and actually went the correct way of avoiding the incident, so he's very lucky there. But he goes on about his day, and I don't think that was his fault, to be honest. As we see the real battle heat up for P2, we've got Jonathan Ogden, Andrea Rugi, Thomas Potter and Nicky Taylor all there, and Ricardo Lina as well. So yeah, it's a good battle. As I say, that Ricardo Lina off.
I was going to say that, you know, the reverse grid races always provide plenty of entertainment for the viewers here on the YouTube, those in the YouTube chat. You know, you always have the slower drivers potentially, you know, nothing against any of them. You know, the slower drivers at the front of the grid, that's why we do the reverse grid race. You know, and then the faster drivers have got to make their way through. But what it also does inhibit is quite a few battles, you know, up towards the front of the pack, as Johnny Ogden now, you know, chasing his way down on Forrester, and you've got to say that Johnny's potentially got the pace on Forrester, and potentially might be able to make the move in the next couple of laps. He's just got to make that gap from Thomas Potter behind, and you know, you got to hand it to Thomas Potter. You know, he's done well to keep out of all the aggravation and all the issues of, you know, race 1 and things like that, and has managed to make it out to P3. So he's definitely going to be one of the racy characters that are going to be chasing after Johnny Ogden, but also Forster as well. As we look at the times coming across, so Forster with a 59.795, Ogden with a 7.05, and then Potter quite close behind. So, you know, it's not all said and done. Forster's not got that gap that he needs, and actually Ogden and Potter are very quick behind him alongside Nicky Taylor.
Yeah, certainly. But saying that, to be fair, Johnny Older's carnage behind, I think that was potentially Nicky Taylor that turned sideways.
It was
A little bit of it, or potentially Carl Felvis actually, as they are involved in a brutal battle here. But Johnny Ogden is in the same 10th of Alex Forster, so Alex is not going to let this go easy. His pace is really good, as well as Thomas Potter. And as I say, that Johnny Ogden goes purple in Sector 1. Got that gap now to Thomas, and is really putting pressure on Alex to pick up the pace. He was 3/10 quicker in Sector 1, so he is really romping on here. And then the sectors behind dropping off a little bit just because that battle. But yeah, the pace is in this race pace is really strong, as we see a bit of side-by-side action in the midfield there.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those ones that, you know, Johnny Ogden now only 8/10 behind Forster in P1, and actually for him it's, you know, do you conserve your tyres? You've got 15 minutes left of this race. Conserve your tyres a little bit. You know you've got the pace against him. You haven't got to worry too much. You know, you're gaining hand over foot. You know, every single corner is an opportunity for him to save the tyres, pull back a little bit. You know, Thomas Potter's not pressuring him so much as, you know, potentially he could do. And it's an opportunity for him to potentially take a race win here, all being well. But, you know, as we see him now, just under 7/10 of a second behind him as he comes through the chicane. Very calm and calculated through there, and, you know, you've got to say he's lining himself up for a move coming into the last corner.
Yeah, he certainly is. Interestingly, Alex Forster was a 10th quicker than Johnny Ogden in Sector 2. And Johnny Ogden went, I think, 5/10 quicker on that last lap, with Carl Felvis with a purple Sector 3 in P4. So this is going to be really good for his championship if he can keep that pace going. See Alex Forster with a little lock up into turn 1, a little deep. And the pressure is really being put on by Johnny Ogden now. He's starting to feel the mirrors of Alex, and there's still 13.5 minutes, so he can be nice and calculated. He can bide his time and then really pounce the attack in the last 10 minutes. I was just looking a little bit further down the field, and Adam Lyle with the fastest lap of the race on a 58.6. That's good pace. That's really good pace, especially when he's trying to battle his way up back through the field with potentially a little bit of damage. The pace he is showing of these last couple of rounds is really strong, so yeah, don't rule him out.
Yeah, you've got to say Adam Lyle's really pushing on to try and make his way up back through the pack, but we see Johnny Ogden now less than 2/10 behind Alex Forster now, and you've got to say it's only a matter of time before he dives up potentially the inside of him. Is, you know, you see Johnny Ogden now clipping every single apex that he needs to. He's got this car picture perfect, and it's only a matter of time before he sends that move and potentially puts Forster under pressure, and, you know, allows him to make a mistake and say thank you very much, I'm going to take that position away from you. But you know, if you were Forster right now, you know, what sort of things should you be thinking about? You know, are you going to potentially go defensive? Are you going to let him through? You know, are you going to say, you know, I haven't got the pace, you know, compared to him, and, you know, I need to do something different here and maybe try and fend off Thomas Potter?
Well, I was just about to say he doesn't need to go defensive until the absolute last moment. You don't want to over-defend and compromise yourself too much, as he's gone deep into the chicane, and Jonathan Ogden with a beautiful switch back there. You see Carl Felvis having to cut the chicane with Giuliano Giarco, but Johnny Ogden is down the inside. He's got his car fully alongside. He's going to get the better exit, and he's going to take the lead. But Alexander Forster with a brilliant exit off the final corner. They're going to be side by side down to turn 1 now, and it must be said Alex has got his car almost fully up and past Johnny Ogden, but Johnny Ogden's still on the inside. He's going to be late on the brakes. They're going to get onto the brakes heavily. There's going to be no lock-up, so it's going to be a slight lock from Johnny Ogden as he goes deep, gets the move complete, and now it's all down to Thomas Potter to try and get Alex for P2. But this is what Johnny Ogden needs just to get that gap for the championship.
It is indeed, and, you know, well done from him. I mean, that was literally signed, sealed, delivered. He's yours more than anything. But that has allowed Thomas Potter up into P2, and Forster's now dropped down to P3. You know, this is a perfect run for Thomas Potter, you know, who was originally P2 in the championship and dropped down after the previous 2 rounds. you know, and this for him is a good opportunity to now chase after Johnny Ogden. Has he got the pace to chase after him and potentially take the race win more than anything? You know, it's a good opportunity for him, and you know, the next 11 minutes is gonna tell, you know, how much pace Thomas Potter has got as he makes some more audacious moves and some different lines than potentially what Johnny Ogden's going to take. But he's got to be careful because Forster's right on his tail and, you know, within the toe, and that's going to hamper him if he's not careful.
Yeah, exactly that. Everyone is so close, and the toe is really effective. But also as well, the dirty air in these single seaters it is prominent. As we see Adam Lyle on the back of someone now. I'm not quite sure who that is. It is Andrea Brugge, and this is for P10. So I think Andrea had a slight incident on the last lap. Adam Lyle up the inside, and now he's inside the top 10. It's been a brilliant recovery so far. And if you can keep it going, this is going to be mega to see. As we actually interested to see Kyle Phelps and Giuliano Giarco going hammer and tongs to the final chicane. Kyle, in a little bit deep. And this is some monstrous battling, and they're even gaining on Alex Forster. So, you know, the battling is pushing them along, it must be said.
Yeah, indeed. And, you know, Giarco's now taking that position from Kyle, and Kyle's not going to let that lie. But you know, as they go almost side by side, taking very different lines. You know, Giarco's hugging the inside and you know, wants to fend that off. And realistically, does Kyle have the opportunity to, you know, get the switchback or anything like that? He doesn't. And you know, he's really having to fight hammer and tongue. But again, the 30 kilos of ballast that he's running, you know, that's really going to hamper him, especially not in terms of straight line speed, but also in terms of his tyres. So this is almost a masterclass from him as he comes up the inside. You know, he's clearly got the pace, but he's going to have to be very smart in terms of the way that he drives his car now, to be able to get in front. And you know, points between prizes, we keep saying this, but you know, for Kyle, like, these points are the difference between him winning the championship potentially at the end of this run and not.
Yeah, exactly that, and the pressure is on in these final couple of rounds. Everyone's got to be feeling the pressure. As there's another purple sector banged in by Adam Lyle. He is just non-stop this race. Nicky Taylor with quite a good recovery as well up into P6. And you know, the gaps are starting to spread between the cars, and everyone's just settling in. But I tell you one thing that isn't, I refer back to it again, it's Carl Ferguson and Giuliano Giarco gaining on Alex Forster. I think we've got a real battle for P3 here, and there's still 8.5 minutes to go, so you never know. You never know what might happen.
You say this, but then you've also got Thomas Potter that's only, you know, half a second off of Johnny Ogden and sticking with him. So he's clearly got the pace here, and potentially hasn't shown it in race 1, but race 2 he's clearly diving after him. And you've got to say that Tom's got his sights set on a race win here, not just a P2. He's not going to settle for it. And you know, has Thomas Potter got the pace that he needs to put Johnny Ogden under pressure and potentially make him make a mistake more than anything, and take that P1 away from him?
And I've just seen in the background, Nicky Taylor has spun all over the sausage curve in the front chicane, rejoined straight in the path of Alexander Link, and they've had a big coming together, and that is really not ideal for Nicky Taylor or Alexander Link coming into this round P2 in the championship. Yeah, he's really been screwed over there almost.
He has indeed, but we see Forster's here now switching positions with Giuliano and Giarco, and I think this is going to be something for the rest of this race where they're constantly changing positions. A lot of these drivers are just so in tune with one another, and they're so close in terms of pace that we're going to see a lot of changes for position. But Carvel was here in P4, so that's a solid position for him. What he needs to chase after is Giuliano Giarco. You know, it's potentially, you know, half a second, you know, 3/4 of a second in front of him. He needs that P3. He needs to be able to hold on to those points and, you know, extend that championship lead, because that's come down massively in the past couple of rounds, and he's not had the fortuitous run that potentially he's had in the first couple of rounds, you know, of this championship. And you know, this, like we say, points mean prizes, and we keep saying it, but you know, Carl's really got to chase after this now and make his stamp as, you know, the dominant driver within this championship.
Yeah, certainly. And he's been consistent. I say that he's had a few bad rounds previously, but he's really showing his true colours tonight, and he's one of the quickest, certainly out there, if not the quickest. So yeah, he's getting on with 6.5 minutes to go here, up in P5, and this lead battle is really heating up now. I think 5 for the lead, and although there's a slight gap, you know, one small lock-up, one small sideways moment, and it's going to come back into contention. So, yeah, Jonathan Ogden certainly can't relax, and he must be feeling a lot of pressure right now, so he's just got to keep it nice and calm and collected and hopefully bring home a race win.
I was going to say, Johnny Ogden can't rest easy right now. I mean, he's got Thomas Potter all over the back of him. Is he now only 3 tenths behind him? He's going to be in the tow as we go on board now with Thomas Potter. And you've got to say, Johnny Ogden must be feeling the pressure. You know, Thomas Potter probably 8 thousandths quicker than Johnny on that last lap. But you've got to say, from Tom's perspective, it's easier to be the hunter than it is to be the hunted. And Johnny Ogden must be, you know, wondering what he can do differently to try and shake Thomas. But if Thomas can stay the way that he is and, you know, pump in these laps that he is, you must say that, you know, Thomas Potter's got a good opportunity here to take P1 in this race.
Yeah, all that Jonathan's got to keep doing is just keeping that gap about 4 tenths, because that tow is not quite effective enough to close that on the straight. So as long as he can just keep it there, he's okay. But almost a tenth smaller, and we're only talking tenths. Marginal stuff, but it all adds up. As Julian Giacomo really picked up the pace. He was a lot quicker than Thomas Potter last lap, and Jonathan Ogden, and he's right on the back now. So Thomas Potter, although he wants to be looking forward for Jonathan, he might have to be looking Giuliano, because Giuliano is much closer to him than he is to Jonathan.
He is indeed, and I think that goes to show, like, with this championship, like it's anyone's to win. You know, there's not a clear leader out here, and you know what we thought was Carl Felvis out in front, and you know, taking a commanding lead in this championship isn't the same now as we are, you know, a couple of rounds in, and you know, there's an opportunity here for anyone within the top 10, particularly to dive in. As you see, like, you know, Thomas Potter, you know, P2 in the championship, and all of a sudden, you know, Thomas Potter backing off for Giuliano Giacomo. So you got to understand, you know, what's happened there. You know, was he potentially trying to let him through? But it seems a little bit strange. I don't understand why he would have done that. It wasn't like he impeded him or anything else. You know, Thomas Potter dropping down to P3 now, and Giuliano Giacomo is going to say thank you very much. Not sure why he did that, but I'll take P2 away from you.
Yeah, indeed, and you know, Thomas Potter can't rest easy though, because he's got Carl Felvis right on the back as well, as he goes for Giuliano again. So it's not like he was trying to work with him. That's certainly not the case. He tries to go for the switch back here, and Kyle is ready there to pick up the piece. He might dive to the inside now to try and get Thomas, but he doesn't. He thinks better of it. Giuliano's now got this move secured, but Thomas Potter is all over the back of him, filling the green card in his moves. He got to send it up the inside. This contact, Giuliano is spun round, and that is really not what he needed for his championship. They're all going to rejoin safely, but yeah, it must be said that was a little bit silly.
I was going to say, more than anything, like, it seems a little bit strange, you know. Thomas Potter backs off and, you know, lets him come up the inside of him, and then all of a sudden, you know, Carl Felvis says, well, if you guys are going to be messing about, then I'm going to take those positions off you and take that championship run. I mean, this is perfect for Carl. More than anything, this is exactly what he wanted, and I'm sure he's going to be, you know, counting his lucky stars more than anything. But, you know, has Carl got the opportunity with 2 minutes 50 left to go to chase down Johnny Ogden and potentially take the race win? I mean, he's only 2.5 seconds off of him, but, you know, Carl's a fast driver. He knows what he's doing. He's not silly. This is an opportunity for him to really knuckle down and take the race win.
Yeah, and I've just picked up on the fact Thomas Potter is back in the pit lane, so he's scoring little points, if not no points. So it really has not been the ideal round, and it must be said, in the last sort of few rounds of the championship, when all the points count, it's just really not an ideal scenario, and a little bit silly to go for that move. To see Adam Lyle right at the back now, I think that is Josh Martin, and they're on for a really good battle now. But yeah, Carl Felvis just needs to reclaim that P2, and you know, that's ideal for him in the championship. It's been quite a strong round for him.
He does indeed, as Adam Lyle makes his way up to P6, as he gets it sideways and puts it onto the grass, and he's going to be frustrated by that as he now drops down to P9 as he makes his, you know, his sort of return and his way back through the pack. You know, Adam Lyle has got the pace, and you've got to say Adam Lyle is probably going to be the pace leader more than anyone around this circuit, and, you know, only managing P9 right now, 1 minute 40 left to go. He's going to be, you know, kicking himself, you know, with the 2 minutes 6 on that last lap. Now, that's not where he needs to be. He knows he's much quicker than the rest of the pack, and, you know, is one of those drivers that you potentially would see for a race win more than anything if he hadn't got caught up in what he got involved in. But you know, this is the way that these races go. The reverse grid races are very different. It's all about trying to make your way through the pack and not get involved in any incidents. What we did see is the WRT drivers, you know, switching positions, and you've got to say Giuliano Giarco getting past Lorenzo Sentra. And I think that was more calculated more than anything, just because of, you know, points mean prizes and positions right there. You know, he's in a better position to chase after the championship. But, you know, Carl Felvis now P2 and only 2 seconds away from Johnny Ogden. You know, it might be a situation with 40 seconds left to go that Johnny Ogden wins this race, but you've got to say Carl Felvis, you know, he hasn't got any contenders now for the championship, and this is going to be great points that he needs to extend his run in the championship.
Well, you say that, but interestingly, Jonathan Ogden is P4 in the championship, and he's only 9 points off. So, although he had quite a bad first race, he's looking strong in this race too. And it must be said, you know, he's shown some strong pace, and he's shown why he's up there in the championship. He's stayed nice and collected, and has had no mistakes so far. Because we're going to go on to the penultimate lap here. Kyle has just stayed out of trouble, and that's why he's found himself in P2, which I think is an ideal scenario. And like you mentioned, Giuliano with a good race as well. And you know, Adam, he did have the pace, and he's got the fastest lap in this race, but must be said, just a few little silly errors. Obviously, the first lap can't be helped, but that little spin there, but he's right on the back again. The pace that he has got is just insane. But yeah, it's shaping up to be a good final couple of laps with some battles across the circuit.
You've got to say, look, Adam Lyle's got the pace to really win this race more than anything. You know, 58 dead. You know, compare that to like Josh Martin with the 58.9, etc. You know, he's diving up the inside. Like, Adam Lyle's got the pace to really win this race, and I'm sure he's going to be kicking himself because you know P8 is not the position that he wants to be in. He wants to be P1, but you know, Johnny Ogden's his teammate. You know, Adam knows he's fast, and you know, for the remainder of these tracks that we're coming up to, there's an opportunity there for him to score maximum points. But you know, is it too little, too late? You know, he's been running around these tracks and you know had these offs and put it into a wall, etc. You know, has that hurt like his championship standing? And you know, has he left it too late to be able to make that fight towards the top? Is Johnny Ogden now 2 seconds ahead of Carl Felvis? Obviously, Carl's gonna realistically, you know, be within 5 seconds ahead of Giuliano Giarco. You've got to say he's just going to bank the points. He hasn't got to mess about. He hasn't got to chase after Johnny Ogden. He can take the runners as Johnny Ogden now comes to the last couple of corners and you know almost make it look easy. But you know Carl is in that position where points mean prizes, and he's going to say thank you very much. That's exactly what I needed from this race.
Yeah, I mean, just staying out of trouble in those incidents with Thomas and Giuliano, but he's done well to manage the race, it must be said. As we've got a nice battle in the midfield as Jonathan Ogden goes on to the final lap of the race here. It's been a strong performance for the Phoenix Sim Racing team as well. Adam Lyle now side by side with Alexander Link, taking some points away from Alexander, certainly. As they're going to run side by side, there's just not going to be contact. Alexander has to back out over the sausage curb. As they go on to the final lap of the race.
And that's a finish. That's a finish right there. So
That
Johnny
is
Ogden
finish.
takes P1, Carl Felvis P2, and Giuliano Giarco P3. And you know that's a dominant victory there from Johnny Ogden. I'm sure he's going to be very happy with that. But you've got to say, Carl Felvis is going to be very happy with that P2. You know, yes, he wasn't on the pace of Johnny Ogden, but as we say, those points are valuable to him, and that's going to be the difference between him consistently leading the championship and not. Yes, it's going to mean he's got that ballast leading into the next round, and he's still going to continue the championship in P1. But that's a dominant run from him. That's all he needed. He didn't need to win the race, and this is going to be the thing leading into the last few rounds of the championship. And the YouTube chat is saying here, well done, Kyle, P2. What a great race. They all know themselves. That's all that Kyle needed. He didn't need to win that race. He just needed to be consistent.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think if he can do that for the final 2 rounds, he will be in a really good spot, especially with leading the championship going into this round. I think it must be said he's extended it almost with Adam Lyle with the fast lap of the race. That's a nice little recovery from him. With Alex Forster driving a really good race as well in P5. Obviously, he was gifted the front spot as part of the reverse grid, but he's held his own and he's done really well.
Yes, indeed. And look, this is the thing throughout this championship. there's not one driver that's, you know, been completely dominant throughout, and I think it gives the opportunity for other drivers to get involved. And you know, any of the top 10 could potentially win this championship. It only takes one wrong move, or one spin, or one plant into the wall, and then, you know, the whole championship can turn on its head. You know, you look at, you know, Thomas Potter. It was realistically P2 in the championship, and he dropped right down through the standings. So, you know, this is anyone's game. This is anyone's opportunity to win this championship, and you know, you got to say, like, it's for anyone to win.
Yeah. And you know, it's like we saw at the beginning of the stream, the top 9 are separated so closely. And I think it'll be even closer on the exit of this round. So yeah, Qatar next. That's an interesting circuit, and then Brands finally, where that's going to be a real make or break for them, and they'll have to be thinking really carefully. But yeah, no, a good night's racing.
Is indeed. As we now go to our ad break, and we'll speak to our race winning drivers directly after this.
What is going on, guys, and welcome back to NerdPC Turbo Tech Reviews. Now today is something a little bit different. Normally we do just reviews on a single item, but today we're going to be showing you guys what you can expect from NerdPC. NerdPC is a bespoke building company where you can get absolutely any sort of style of gaming PC, office work PC, retail, or even for school work. This PC here demonstrates how small they can be, but yet still pack an absolute powerful punch. So from such a small computer like this, you may be worrying about heat, but these fans inside of here keep it absolutely ice cold as well as quiet. Now listen to this. Nice and quiet. Beautiful. Now we build completely different style of computers. Like I said, from this little one up here, it's all down to you. You get to decide on which case you want to use. You get to decide if you want it all flashy and RGB. You get to decide whether you want it completely plain and black. Remember, we did the hard part of figuring out which components work best for you for your value for money, but you get to decide on how it looks. If you're after something that's in your face, some bright and powerful as this. So this build here is in a Gigabyte C102 glass Arctic Ice case with 320mm cooler master fans at the front, 360mm all-in-one cooler at the top. This full white ice build does look insane, and I can assure you, you will not be disappointed. So if you're on the market for a brand new shining gaming computer, or if you want a computer for home use, retail, or office work, it's completely down to you. We just make it happen. So if you haven't done already, go and head over to the website at www.nerdpc.co.uk, have a browse through, see what's on there, or drop us a message directly on Facebook, and we'll do our absolute best to make it happen for you. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it. And if you are new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you did enjoy this video, hit the like for me, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!
And welcome back. And we're going to speak now to our third place driver, Giuliano Giarco. Giuliano, what a race that was. And talk us through that.
E Giuliano, hai fatto la terza posizione, com'è andata la gara?
Non so che dire, Vic. Cioè, il mio obiettivo era essere davanti a Fergus, mi hanno tamponato e sono arrivato dietro. Tutto qua.
Ok. Giuliano don't have a word to say nothing because the objective was the point was finish the race in front Fergus, but one contact make impossible these things. So he's a bit angry, but this is the race, so we can't make nothing. We will see with the replay, and we will see the next race. We will see what's happening in the next race. We start tomorrow to work and to take the first position in championship.
Yeah, so just off the back of that, you know, like this championship is hotting up. It's getting very close between a lot of drivers, especially between the top 10. You know, what are your aspirations? Do you think you can still win the championship, or do you think it's more of a case of, you know, points mean prizes and try and go for P2 or P3?
Dice che la classifica è molto stretta, soprattutto lì davanti. Pensi di poter vincere il campionato oppure punti a una P3 o un P2?
Io punterei al campionato, se continuano a tamponarmi no. Digli così.
He think to win the championship, but if they continue to contact him, it's impossible to finish the race and make the first position in championship. So we will see what's happening.
Okay, and you know, what are your aspirations for the next?
Fai complimenti a Jonathan, per favore, grazie.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So, what are your aspirations for the next round? You know, where do you see yourself after the next race?
Cosa vedi per la prossima gara? Cosa pensi?
Fare più punti possibili. Basta.
We try to make more point we can. We say compliments to Jonathan, can make the first position, and we are try to make our best for win.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations and well done on the P3, and we hopefully speak to you in the next race.
Thank you so much, guys, and thank you for organizing everything.
No problem. As we go over now to Thomas Merritt for our P2 interview.
Well, hello everyone. I'm going to be joined by Kyle Felbish, your championship leader, and it must be said a great race there from yourself. Just staying out of trouble after that incident at the beginning of the race and clawing back some much needed points in the championship.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather not take the points, to be fair. This 30 kg is quite awful to drive with, so I'd rather drop a few places. But, you know, it keeps me up there and keeps me in the fight for the lead, so I'll take it.
Yeah, no, you're. We were wondering about that. Obviously, you got 30 kg of ballast compared to some others where they've got either less ballast or no ballast. It must be quite a challenge out there. Obviously, less speed on the straights and potentially affecting the cornering as well. Talk us through that.
Yeah, definitely. I think straight line speed going up the chicane on this track, you notice it quite a lot. And just sitting behind people, the dirty air definitely plays a bigger effect because you've got all the weight pushing you back down as well. So it's just, you've got a lot more to think about. Obviously, tyre management comes into play, and just positioning the car in the right place so that you can try and maximise the corner speed.
Brilliant, and obviously we've seen quite a bit on your socials that you're doing a lot of iRacing and Assetto Corsa at the moment. Obviously swapping between the two platforms, is it something that's quite difficult or is it quite similar?
I mean, they're definitely two different simulators. I mean, iRacing, you know, they've got their own physics and everything, and Assetto is completely different. But I think I've been doing it for long enough now that I can just swap between the two and, you know, be comfortable straight away. And iRacing is one of those platforms where you can always just jump into a race, and so that's normally why I'm on it.
Brilliant, and finally, what are your sort of plans going into Qatar? Obviously, a new circuit for everyone. Is it something you're looking forward to, and hopefully, are you going to plan to maybe drop a few positions, or is it just full push now for the end of the championship?
I think it'll still be full push for the end of the championship. I mean, Qatar, I think there's a lot of corners on that circuit that could end in disaster, but it will also make for some great racing, so we'll just have to go into it and see what happens.
Brilliant. Well, thank you and well done for tonight, and hopefully we'll be talking to you again next week, and good luck.
Cheers, Tom.
Thank you.
Big well done there for Carl Fulvers on P2, and the most needed championship points that he needs. But we move on to our P1 standing here, Jonathan Ogden. Johnny. Were you expecting that at the start of this evening, or is this something that you know, potentially could have been but wasn't?
I think this is no, I wouldn't expect it, to be honest. Me and this track don't get along, famously. I mean, race 1 is a massive shame. Lost a lot of points on there, but I think I've done a good enough job to balance that out to be where I would have finished in race 1 to where I would have started race 2, where I potentially could have finished race 2. But I felt like I had good pace in race 2 there. Like I built up a decent enough gap and was making enough moves and just controlling the people behind me.
I mean, you were indeed. I mean, let's be completely honest. You managed to make your way through the pack. You got yourself up to P1, and then from there, at that point on, you know, there was a couple of moments where, you know, someone was within sort of half a second of you, but you must say, like, from the start of this championship, you know, where you were to, you know, potentially P11, P12, all the way up to P4, and now, you know, winning this race. Have you got your sights set on the championship lead?
I wouldn't be here if I hadn't. I mean, it's a bit frustrating about the first race because I've lost a lot of points there. I think I can gain. I think I might be able to be on the podium for the championship. I think Carl's run away with it, and I think that's a testament to how quick he is. But I think the rest of us are fighting for the best of the rest. So that's what I'm going to be planning on doing.
And you say this, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, Carl had a massive points lead, and that's obviously dropped off quite considerably. You know, the way these championships work with the ballast especially, you know, there's an opportunity for drivers to sneak their way in, per se, and make their way up to the top. And, you know, this it has been seen before, so there must be a part of you that thinks, you know what, there might be an opportunity here to, you know, sneak my way up into P1 and go for the prize.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think just got to see what happens. Again, race 1, I could have done with that little bit of, well, less hassle, let's say. But obviously we'll have a look and chat about that. But it just got to capitalise on people's mistakes and just be there ready to pounce. I mean, again, at the start there, race 2, capitalised on the fact that I was starting further up the grid than some of these faster guys. But again, with the clean air, I felt like I had the pace. Like you said, there was a few people behind me coming up about half a second behind, but it wasn't like I couldn't just not leave them. I knew exactly where I wanted them to be, and it went my way really.
Yeah, I must admit, look, we've got Qatar coming up next. There's an opportunity here for you to score some really great points. You know, how much practice are you going to be putting in? You know, with the position that you come in now, and taking P1 in that second race. You know, where do you lie with that? You know, are you going to be putting in the practice and really nail it down to try and make your way up the grid? You know, you've gone from, you know, realistically P12 in the championship down now up to P4, and then the opportunity now to really push for the win with how closer that it is. You know, are you going to be pushing for that, or is that something that you're going to say, you know what, Carl's got it and I'm going to settle behind him?
Not going to settle. To be honest, what's the point in racing, right?
Exactly.
If you're not gunning for first, then you're probably in maybe the wrong sport. Obviously, you got to sometimes accept where you stand. There's been a few races where, or more than half of them, I'd say that I've been off the pace of Kyle, but there's been other races that I've been more on the pace, and there's been other races where he's made a mistake and I've capitalised off it. So you've just got to be there ready. I'm going to be putting as much practice as I can in to Qatar. Depending on my place here, I might have to get someone to stand in for me for the next race, but I will be practicing with them and bringing up speed just to make sure that we don't lose any more points. Obviously it's not going to be great, but it's unfortunately the way life goes.
where you're gonna have to really put the practice in and make sure you're on point for the rest of the season. More than anything, because Carl is not an easy contender, as I'm sure you're aware from previous championships. So you're gonna have to fight hammer and tong, but I'm sure you can do it. So a big well done to you, Johnny, and look forward to potentially speaking to you in the next round.
Thank you very much for having me. Well done to everyone, for Kyle and Giuliano. Also, can I just do a quick shout out to my sponsors, Bar 11, OJ Valatin, Renegade. We've also got Phoenix as well. And obviously, thanks for Pro-Am as well, the guys I raced with the other weekend, as well at Silverstone. So yeah, thanks to all those guys.
Amazing stuff. Well, congratulations, Johnny, on your race win, and look forward to speaking to you potentially in the next round.
Thank you very much. See you guys in a bit. Cheers.
There we go then for Johnny Ogden there in P1 for race 2 here at the Nurburgring, and as we move on now to Qatar, this sort of championship is all hotting up with the opportunity for anyone within the top 10 to win. With a lot of these drivers struggling with the cars and trying to figure out the setups and things like that. So it'll be an interesting last couple of rounds to see what these drivers can do. And to see where they can finish. But that's all that we have for this evening, and thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and more than anything, please like, subscribe, and share this to the wider audience. We want as many people as we can to view these streams and get involved with our racing as we do here at Phoenix in Racing. So it's much appreciated. Thank you to everyone in the YouTube comments that have been commenting and getting involved. It's much appreciated, and yeah, we look forward to seeing you next week here at Qatar. Thank you.